Good evening, visitors. Welcome to the Australian War Memorial's Last Post ceremony. My name is Robert Adams, and joining us today from the Australian Army is Signalman James Adams. This evening we commemorate the 80th anniversary of the Cowra breakout. By August 1944, there were 2,223 Japanese prisoners of war in Australia. Of these, 1,104 were housed in Camp B of Number 12 Prisoner of War compound near Cowra in the central west of New South Wales. They were guarded by the 22nd Garrison Battalion. On Friday the 4th of August, in response to information that the Japanese were discussing a mass breakout, notice was given that all Japanese prisoners below the rank of Lance Corporal would be transferred to the Hay Prisoner of War camp. About 2 a.m. on Saturday the 5th of August 1944, a prisoner ran shouting to the gates of the camp. Soon afterwards, an unauthorised bugle was heard, and prisoners armed with knives and improvised clubs rushed from their huts and began breaking through the barbed wire fences. Sentries opened fire, but several hundred prisoners escaped into open country, while others who remained set fire to the camp buildings. In the following 9 days, 334 prisoners were retaken. In all, 234 Japanese prisoners were killed and 108 wounded. On the night of the breakout, 3 Australian soldiers were killed and another 3 were wounded. Shortly, we will hear the story of Private Charles Henry Shepherd, who was one of those killed during the Cowra breakout. This evening, we warmly welcome Captain Tomoyuki Amanuma, Defence Attaché, Embassy of Japan, Mr. Patrick Delgaitis, Deputy President of the Returned and Services League of Australia ACT branch, and members of the Australian Defence Force Junior Enlistment Team. As always, we welcome the veterans who have served, those that are still serving, and the families that love and support them. The live stream of this ceremony is made possible by the Returned and Services League of Australia and the RSL and Services Clubs Association. We welcome members who are watching the live stream of this ceremony across Australia. During this evening's ceremony, wreaths will be laid at the base of the pool of reflection by visitors to the memorial and students on behalf of Windsor State School visiting from Windsor, Queensland. If you are able, I now invite you to please stand and join in singing the national anthem. The Australian War Memorial was the vision of Charles Bean, Australia's First World War official historian. Bean landed with the Australian troops on Gallipoli and stayed with them at the front through to the end of the war. The idea of this national memorial and museum came to him at Pozières, France, in the depths of the bloody fighting of 1916. Bean's idea was that this would be a place where families and friends could mourn loved ones buried in faraway places. It would also be a place that could help all Australians understand what these men and women had endured and what they had done for us. Bean's vision, to which we remain true, is best expressed as inscribed in the entrance to the memorials galleries. Here is their spirit, in the heart of the land they loved, and here we guard the record which they themselves made. Tonight we'll read the story behind just one of those on the Roll of Honour, which lists the names of more than 103,000 men and women who have given their lives for us in war and on operations over more than a century. But first we present a lament, Flowers of the Forest. Wreaths or floral tributes will now be laid at the base of the pool of reflection.
Today, we remember and pay tribute to Private Charles Henry Shepherd. Charles Shepherd was born on the 18th of February 1913 in Sydney, one of 4 children born to Emily Matilda Shepherd. Emily married John Henry Wild in 1922, but it is unclear whether he was the biological father of her first 3 children, as his name does not appear on their birth certificates and they never adopted his surname. Little is known of Charles's early life. By 1937, he was living in the New South Wales town of Young, where he married Linda Irene. The couple had 3 daughters, Patricia, Letitia, and Doris. Charles enlisted in the Citizens Military Force on the 30th of December 1941 and was given the rank of private. Charles's medical examination found that he was blind in his left eye, and he was classified as suitable only for base or garrison service. Charles joined the 16th Garrison Battalion on the 1st of January 1942 and marched out to Hay, where the battalion was stationed, guarding internment camps 6, 7 and 8. Internment camps throughout Australia housed nationals of enemy countries, including those who were naturalised British citizens. The camps also held enemy prisoners of war, at first mostly from Italy and Germany, but increasingly from Japan, with the escalation of fighting in the Pacific in early 1942. Charles needed frequent visits to the camp hospital. He was admitted to 205 Camp Hospital with appendicitis in late January and again in December for the removal of a cyst from his mouth. In early 1943, he was transferred to the 22nd Garrison Battalion, which staffed Camp 12 at Cowra in mid-western New South Wales. The camp held prisoners of war from Japan, Indonesia, and Italy, as well as a number of civilian internees. Charles was hospitalised again in late 1943, this time for tonsillitis in both October and November. Returning to the battalion, and perhaps dissatisfied with the guard work assigned to him, he began disappearing from camp. First, for a few hours in December 1943 and February 1944, and then for a fortnight in July 1944. Each time, he was only admonished, though he forfeited pay for the time he was absent without leave. On the night of the 4th of August, 1944, Charles was one of the men working the overnight shift at Cowra. Tensions had been rising in the camp among Japanese prisoners following a riot at a Japanese camp in New Zealand. In line with new precautions introduced for Australian camps, notice was given that all Japanese prisoners below the rank of Lance Corporal would be transferred from Cowra to Hay, while more senior non-commissioned officers and officers would remain at Cowra. This decision angered the already on-edge Japanese prisoners and was seen by many prisoners as disregarding the important ties between men of different ranks in the Imperial Japanese Army. At 1:50 in the night of Saturday, the 5th of August, 1944, an unauthorised bugle was sounded in Camp B at Cowra. Up to 900 Japanese prisoners immediately rushed from their huts to attack the fences of the compound. Armed with an assortment of fabricated weapons, including knives, clubs, and bats, the prisoners pushed down the barbed wire fencing, attacked the crew of a Vickers gun, and escaped into the night, while members of the 22nd Garrison Battalion opened fire. During the commotion, Private Charles Shepherd emerged from the guard room, where he encountered a Japanese prisoner armed with a knife. Charles was stabbed to death by the prisoner and left where he fell. He was 31 years old. Following inquiries into the breakout and the deaths of 4 Australians, it was determined that Charles had died from the effects of injuries secured in the execution of duty, feloniously and maliciously inflicted upon him. Because Cowra was not considered a war zone, his wife Linda was denied a widow's pension and never learned the full details of her husband's death. Unable to provide for her 3 daughters, they were seized from her care and made wards of the state. Private Charles Shepherd was buried in Cowra War Cemetery 2 days after his death. His name is also listed on the Roll of Honour on my left, among almost 40,000 Australians who died while serving in the Second World War. His photograph is displayed today by the Pool of Reflection. This is but one of the many stories of service and sacrifice told here at the Australian War Memorial. We now remember Private Charles Henry Shepherd, who gave his life for us, for our freedoms, and in the hope of a better world.
If you're able, please stand for the reading of the Ode and the sounding of the last post.
They shall grow not old as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun and in the morning, We will remember them.
We will remember them.
Lest we forget.
Lest we forget. We leave you this evening with the words of the memorial's founder, Charles Bean. Many a man lying out there at Poziere or in the low scrub at Gallipoli with his poor, tired senses barely working through the fever of his brain has thought in his last moments, well, it's over. But in Australia, they will be proud of this. Ladies and gentlemen, girls and boys, that concludes the last post ceremony. On behalf of the Director, staff and volunteers, thank you for visiting the Australian War Memorial today and for your continued support during the Memorial's development project. We wish you all a very pleasant evening. Thank you.